Good afternoon. I'm Patricia Osborne, and we're here to interview Mrs. Betty Williams Carter. The research being conducted for this project consists of interviews of people who have witnessed and contributed to the civil rights movement across South Central Alabama. Many community residents who played a crucial role before, during, and after the nationally recognized events that put Montgomery, Alabama at the forefront of the movement have not been duly identified or appreciated. The eventual goal of this proposed project is to help provide a more comprehensive picture of the movement from a local perspective in the Black Belt region of Alabama. This is Mrs. Betty Williams Carter's perspective of that time.
My story began when I was 8 years old in the 4th grade. It all started with a teacher that I loved very much, and her name was Gertrude R. Webster. Mrs. Webster told us as students that she would be late for school the next morning. However, we didn't quite understand everything she was saying, but we knew it was something that she was very involved with, and it was going to be good for our future. She got to work late that morning because they all walked to work instead of their normal transportation. When we saw her picture in the newspaper, we were so happy to see that she made the front page. And as the years progressed on, and I got in junior high school, we started noticing that our teachers were concerned about our education and the things that we needed to do and the things that we needed to do to be successful in life. As a senior, it all started when President Kennedy was assassinated, and we were getting ready for our Thanksgiving parade and game. And we all had to come into the building and have some quiet time. And as we were having our quiet time, we were reminiscing that something was going to happen in Montgomery. A change was coming. Dr. King would come into the city in and out and would be at various churches. And we would go because our parents would carry us with them. And we would sit on the floor because there were so many people in the church. And all I could remember, it was extremely hot. And I could see Dr. King as he stood and he was talking and he was pointing as he talked. One night my father had gotten an alert when they were at a church that danger was around. We never knew because they never would tell us what danger was around because we were only young children. And my father had to stay inside of the church all night because in fear of trouble if they had left out to come home. And so these were some of the times that we learned to live with whatever this was going on. And so by the time I reached the 12th grade, it was 250 of us who was to graduate, and we were very happy, going through a lot of changes. And so around 1960 something, when Dr. King, they had the Selma to Montgomery March, we were now living only about 6 houses up the street on Oak Street from St. Jude Catholic School. And so we do know that the sisters allowed the marches to come on. And being a child, a young lady at that time, I just wanted to meet Dr. King. So when they entered the grounds, I did get a chance to see Dr. King. I saw a puddle of water on the ground, and there were 2 men that took him by the arm and lifted him over the puddle, and that was exciting to me to see. And Parnell Roberts, who was known as Adam on Bonanza, was with him. And to be a young person watching Bonanza, I said, "Oh, Adam." And it was just a very wonderful experience to be involved with. But I did go home that night, and the next morning I knew that the march was going to take place. There were guards that was up and down Oak Street, and they were the National Guards, and for the first time I had seen them sit and eat, and they would take stuff out of cans to eat, and being inquisitive, I said, what does it taste like? And one of them took the can and let me taste it. And I said, wow, I didn't know it was good. And so when the march began, my father had taken a cold, and he was standing and was going to go downtown later. But Sidney Poitier came by and said, he said, black man, do not stand and watch us, join us. My father said, oh, I've been with you all along. And all of the experience of just seeing the different entertainers and to hear them sing all night at St. Jude was just an experience for me. And so the next morning when the march started, we really just watched them as they passed our house, because we didn't go down at that time, knowing that later on my father would take us down so we could see what was going on. And as I sort of switched time, now I'm in college. And when I got to college, there was a lot going on, and the University of Alabama, the students were going, and our governor at the time was George Wallace, who told the students that they couldn't come in. And we were getting all the news. However, we had very good teachers that would tell us certain things to do, certain things not to do. So by the time that we would go to these different marches and what have you, later on we had heard that Dr. King had been assassinated. Hearing he was assassinated, it was just like a blow. It was something that we really just didn't understand, but we said, Dr. King is dead. And so we did get some type of warning that if we were college students and we left to go to his funeral, that we would not graduate from college. So I looked at my best friend, and she looked at me, and we knew then Dr. King is dead. That's all we looked at. And we said, we are going. So we were willing to yield every year we had put through college to go to that funeral regardless, because I say, he is dead, and the things that he's done for us, we are going. So we did. We set out to go, and our teachers knew it, and they somewhat like encouraged us to go on. They could not go. Of course, they probably would have lost their jobs. We went on to Atlanta. Some of the lawyers and some of the people who were in business in Montgomery, they were taking us, and we went by car. And I can remember Lawyer Connolly, we were in his car. And we went, they got us our hotel rooms and everything, and we stayed, and I had never seen a limousine before. And so as we stood on the balcony in Atlanta, I looked over, and there was this long car, and I asked my friend, come look at this long car. And in this hotel was several entertainers, people that I probably would have never met in my life, but I got a chance to meet them then. So the next morning, the people in Atlanta was very friendly, and they would come and they would greet us and they would take us and they would just host us as if we were family members. And so we went down, and one of the young men said, before the march started, I want you all to see what the underground looked like. They took us down in the underground, and my father was on his way to get there. And so by the time he got there and met us, we just continued to tell him the excitement that we had been through. So the march did start, and when the march started, I started recognizing people who were in front of me, and I can remember Stokely Carmichael was in front of me, and all I could hear them saying is throwing up the fist saying, Black Power, Black Power. And it was so energizing until we were saying Black Power, Black Power. Not so much that we were above anyone, but we had been so downtrodden until we felt like we had a worthy cause to be there for that march. So as we walked down and all the people started walking, and like I said, Stokely Carmichael and some of the Black Panthers, they were there. And it was just so exciting. And I told my dad, I said, oh, Dad, I said, this is so exciting. And so we kept walking, and then finally we got tired. Just like, children, it was such a long walk, we started getting tired. So the people in Atlanta had lined their houses, water, and they had water in different areas where we can drink water. And one lady said, well, you are tired, come and sit in my yard for a while. So we stopped and got out of the march and sat in the yard, and then we could really see what was going on. And I saw Sidney Poitier and Senator McCarthy, and they both passed, and they were tall men. Of course, I'm 5'2", so at that time, that was extremely tall to me. And I looked, I said, wow. So later on, we saw the casket coming, and it was on a horse, you know, it was on a carriage, and they was carrying it, and the horse was leading. And we just looked and said, there is Dr. King where he lies. And it was just something to see. People were tearing up, and we just kept tearing and looking at each other and just saying, Dr. King is dead. And so afterwards, as the proceeding of the march was going on down, they were on their way to the church. Well, of course, we could not get in the church because there were so many people. So we decided to get someone to carry us back to Dr. King's house. So we'll be there when everybody comes back. So we went to the house, and there was someone there to greet us, to let us in. And my friend and I, we asked, is it all right if we can look around? And they said, sure. And as we were looking around, everything was so common, so natural. Nothing where you could see where he was spending a whole lot of money. Just a simple house with a nice picture window. And so I was admiring the pictures on the wall. And, you know, just thinking, here I am, a college student, but here I am sitting in Dr. King's house. So later on, Harry Belafonte brought in Coretta. And when he brought her in, his wife was there, and you know, being young, we wanted to shake his hand, but of course they didn't let us get as close to Sister King because they wanted to kind of get her so they could put her in, you know, let her sit down for comfort. And so as we were sitting there, Sidney Poitier's wife, she reached over, and not Sidney Poitier, but Harry Belafonte's wife, reached over and she shook our hand. So when she shook our hand, then he shook our hand. And so we then said, well, let's go outside. But when we went outside, they had like stoops, you know, concrete stoops, one up, you know, they were common in the South. And so Bernice and Yolanda was outside, and they had on their little dresses, and they were jumping rope. And as they were jumping rope, we asked the question, I heard one of the students, the children there in the neighborhood say, aren't you sad? Aren't you going to cry? And I heard one, I don't know which one of the sisters said it, they said our daddy had already gotten us prepared for this. And by them saying that, Pat and I sat there and just said, wow. And we were just watching, not knowing. We didn't get a chance to see the sons, but the daughters were there. And so later on, we were then carried back to our hotel room, and just different stars and entertainers were there. So we got a chance to see a lot of them just by being in Atlanta. And so then I called back home to my grandparents to tell them what all we had seen and how beautiful it was. And it was exciting. It was something that I would always take with me for the rest of my life, to know that I had a part of sitting and hearing his children and being able to meet different people during that time. John Kennedy, Jr., I got a chance to meet him. He came to our house of worship, and we all met at Morrison Cafeteria in a private room. And I could hear him say, Daddy, sit me down. And we were just sitting there, my grandmother, all of us, never knew that history was so strong at that point. But at that point, God had me there. And I got a chance. And before my grandfather passed away, just watching TV, I can recall him saying, he said, I see something on his face when he was giving his last speech. And he said, it's something that I've never seen before while he was talking. So I'm just here to say that's part of my story. And it's something that I will always live with. I will always be very grateful for, because I was one of the first teachers to enter school in '69, integrating the schools in Georgia. So my experience is quite rich. It is something that I will never forget. And it's something that I teach my grandchildren. My children know all about it, and it'll be a life turn for us because history hasn't really been told of the things that we witnessed while we were growing up during that period.